All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to have a very interesting presentation all about Save the Frogs Day. My name is Michael Starkey, and I'm the International Campaigns Coordinator for Save the Frogs. And part of my work is that I actually coordinate this global day to celebrate amphibians. It's a very special time of year right now because right now people around the world are crafting their events and they're beginning the organizational process. And so we are hoping to have these online presentations to kind of help facilitate the success of those meetings as much as, or of those events as much as possible. And so we have a course of videos that we'll be creating for event registrants. And that so that basically will help them with any questions they have, whether it's about, how to get a larger audience for their events or how to fundraise for their events for worthy amphibian causes. And so all to kind of expand the reach of their events so that we can ultimately save more amphibians by generating more awareness. And so Save the Frogs Day was founded the first started in 2009. It was conceived and coordinated by Save the Frogs. And it's the largest day of amphibian conservation action. And it's a very special day for amphibians. Now, the backstory is very simple for Save the Frogs Day. The name says it all. It's trying to generate awareness for this event. And really, it comes down to the fact that amphibians are some of the most threatened group of organisms on the planet. Over 1/3 of all amphibian species are threatened with extinction. But the problem is that not really anybody knows about it. And the simplest way that we can raise awareness is getting out into our communities and educating them as much as possible about why amphibians are going extinct. And plus, tell them and hopefully empower them to save the frogs as well. So we got to get as many people on board to help save frogs from extinction. Now, so because this amphibian extinction crisis is a very large problem, and there's not really one issue that impacts amphibians. So, the threats that face amphibians are from habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, overharvesting for food, pets, and all different kinds of things. Invasive species, infectious diseases, all these things are having synergistic effects. So they're combined effects. And so frogs, for example, in California might be suffering from climate change issues or, loss of habitat, where frogs maybe in Panama or parts of Central and South America are suffering from chytrid fungus. And so the same techniques aren't going to, conservation efforts won't be able to solve the problems for the same group of amphibians. And really, it's going to come down to having local action as much as possible. So if communities go out into the environment to help save the amphibians, save the frogs, gathering their communities together as much as possible to have very local, sustained conservation efforts. And so that really is going to be the key to solving this amphibian extinction crisis. And Save the Frogs Day is the best way to make that happen. So because the most important part of what Save the Frogs does is to educate people, educate our society that amphibians are in trouble, the environment is in trouble, and we actually have the power and the ability to make a difference. We just have to do it. And again, so we're trying to make this amphibian extinction crisis common knowledge. And Save the Frogs Day is great for this because it'll expand the reach of our organization's goal at educating our society that frogs are in trouble. Now, so it really comes down to this. It's up to you to save the frogs. And Save the Frogs Day is a decentralized event. That means that anyone around the world can have an event as long as it's celebrating amphibians or raising awareness for their conservation. And the amount of events is actually quite diverse. So it's really up to you to decide what it is that you want to do to help amphibians. And there are many amazing ways that people have celebrated Save the Frogs Day. So this year, it will be featured on Saturday, April 29th, 2017. Save the Frogs Day is always on the last Saturday of April. Now, this is the 9th annual Save the Frogs Day. And if at any time you have any questions about the history of Save the Frogs Day or maybe examples of past events, go to savethefrogs.com/day to learn as much as possible about the event. Now, since 2009, we've had over 1,200 events in at least 60 countries. And we try as best as possible to keep track of how many events happen every single year But Save the Frogs Day is actually, to our surprise, taken a life of its own. And some organizations or individuals will hold Save the Frogs Day events, not even knowing that Save the Frogs was the original creator. And so sometimes events go without us knowing. And as long as it's helping frogs, helping amphibians, that's fine with us. But we've had so many events take place in the last 9 years. We're hoping that the 9th annual Save the Frogs Day will be even bigger. We always have an annual goal of 300 events in 30 countries. And sometimes we hit an average of that number or a little bit less. But we know that this year and previous years, it's only going to continue to grow and get bigger and bigger as possible. So, and with your help, we can make that a reality. Now, Save the Frogs Day is truly global. This isn't restricted to the United States or any particular country. It really depends on dedicated individuals around the world to make this happen. Because as amphibians live around the world, so do the amazing frog savers that want to help protect them. So it truly is a global day. And there are so many different events that take place. Again, it's up to you what you want to do. But here are some really amazing examples. Like, for instance, this photo was part of a march in the busy streets of Chittagong in Bangladesh, where over 200 people marched through these busy streets with frog masks. And you can imagine in a country like Bangladesh, this brought quite a bit of awareness that frogs are in a lot of trouble. And this group of people gathered together and had this march to save the frogs on Save the Frogs Day. So pretty amazing. And every year they actually continue to have marches like this. So we're very proud of what's happening in Bangladesh for frogs. In Ghana, so we're crossing continents a little bit, as some of our supporters know, our first international branch of Save the Frogs is Save the Frogs Ghana, and they were established in 2011. And so they have many focused campaigns for the amphibians of Ghana, and one issue is the overharvesting for food, so frog meat. And many communities in northern Ghana actually eat a lot of frogs. And some are saying, and actually the data is proving, that this level of consumption is completely unsustainable. So Save the Frogs Ghana has partnered with universities and many students and volunteers to have this excellent Say No to Frog Meat campaign. And so every Save the Frogs Day, they've actually had a march in some of the frog meat markets. So some of the markets where all these frogs are being sold, they gather with local community members and students to, have a parade to celebrate frogs, but also bring awareness to this issue. Because most people don't even realize that eating frogs is an issue, but it's just that the frogs are, getting rarer and rarer. And so unless it's addressed, we're not gonna see any more frogs. And so in Ghana, in the northern region, Chiana and Avrongo, they've had these wonderful campaigns where they have these parades and marches, and they go visit local schools as well. So, and these are some of the students that take part. Some of these signs are absolutely wonderful. And sometimes when people come to us about, I don't have the funds to do an event, or I don't have the resources. But many of these people are their friends. So they're students and they're friends, and they found cardboard, which you can find anywhere. And they took a big marker and wrote signs, and they had a parade. And so it's pretty amazing with what little resources you have and how you can have a really spectacular event. And sometimes scientists will actually have presentations themselves, or they'll take people out into the wild to look for frogs. Because a big part about Save the Frogs Day is not only, bringing awareness for their conservation, but also celebrating amphibians. And so many people take nature walks. They'll go out and look for amphibians. Like this scientist in Ireland, he took a group of nature lovers out to go find frogs. So pretty wonderful. And like that, many scientists also give presentations about amphibians. And so back to Ghana, this is Save the Frogs Executive Director, Save the Frogs Ghana Executive Director, Gilbert Adum. He always gives presentations about amphibians and rallies his community about saving the frogs on Save the Frogs Day. But around the world, many scientists will give presentations at their universities, at local schools, or at publicly held events. And then another great way to celebrate Save the Frogs Day is actually to restore or create wetlands. Save the Frogs has a program called Refrogging America, where we are attempting to build as many wetlands as possible in the next 10 years. And so we've built wetlands or restored wetlands on Save the Frogs Day. in parts of California. And we hope that other people can do it as well. And many have. So on our website, savethefrogs.com/wetlands or /ponds, there's many tips on there about how to build a pond, build a wetland, or also about ways that you can help restore them as well. Because amphibians, they're in a lot of trouble, and actually habitat destruction is one of the biggest threats to amphibians. And so what better way to celebrate, say, the Frogs Day than to go out in your community and build a wetland for frogs? And this is a really great a great activity for students as well. So even though Say the Frogs Day is on a Saturday, many teachers and schools will have it on the Friday before so that they can do something for the students, because students love frogs, kids love frogs. And so what better way to get them out in the nature, get them building a wetland, or just teaching them about metamorphosis or other, amazing facts about amphibian life cycles or natural history. So in this school in California, they built one on Say the Frogs Day, and it was a spectacular event. Also, again, back to, just habitat protection as well is a big thing for Say the Frogs Day. For example, in Korea, there was a last little bit of toad habitat that was going to be converted into, a building. And the community gathered together and they actually stopped the project from happening because they much rather have a wetland than, some new, I think it was either a shopping mall or apartment complex, something like that. And they got together and they saved these frogs literally on this day. And they had a big celebration on Say the Frogs Day to celebrate it. So it was pretty amazing. I'm very jealous of their froggy suits. I wish we had some here in America that they're that awesome. But again, in their community, getting everyone out into nature and celebrating this protection on Say the Frogs Day. Excellent event. But some people have froggy 5Ks. For 2 years, we organized a 5K race in Seattle so people could run for the frogs, another great event to have. Or like, back to habitat protection, we've had rallies and protests in the past. For example, in San Francisco, the Sharp Park Golf Course has been continually killing frogs, native California red-legged frogs, which are a threatened species in the state. And every year the golf course floods because it's right next to the ocean. And because of that flooding, the frogs are so excited in this golf course and they go out and they breed, but you can't golf on a flooded golf course. So they drain it all out, killing egg masses and tadpoles. And, so it's not good for the frogs. And so we've been urging the San Francisco mayor and the city council to actually restore that golf course into a wetland. And so in Say the Frogs Day, one year we gathered together with many other environmental organizations to urge San Francisco to, replace the golf course with a park that would be, used for many more individuals. So again, Say the Frogs Day is a day for action. So we're hoping that people are inspired to do something for their community and for the environment and for the frogs. And a part of that can be a nice, peaceful rally to educate people about the threats that are facing amphibians. We had another rally in DC where we were protesting basically the pesticide atrazine, and how, for those that are not aware, atrazine is a pretty scary herbicide that's in our water. Atrazine is it's a herbicide that's used for dry crops like soy and corn, and we use about 80 million pounds of it in the United States. Europe banned it in 2004, and the federal EPA has still not made a decision if this is a harmful pesticide. But scientists around the world have been studying it, and especially in the United States, and they found some alarming things about it. For example, atrazine, when it's in the drinking water, basically the legal limit that's allowed, allowed in the drinking water, it changes male frogs into female frogs. So it's scary stuff. And so we've had a long campaign to get atrazine banned in the United States. And on this particular Save the Frogs Day, we actually had a rally outside the White House, and we marched all the way to the federal EPA, hand-delivered 10,000 signatures, and actually had a meeting with them the next day about atrazine. And a good atrazine update is that the federal EPA has finally actually classified it as harmful, which is a big step in hopefully making a ban of this dangerous chemical. Also, Save the Frogs Day is also just about awareness. And so many individuals will go to their local governors or their mayors, and they will say, hey, let's make Save the Frogs Day a registered day, just like any holiday. And so we've had some pretty dedicated frog savers, including Avalon here from Florida got Save the Frogs Day recognized in Tampa, Florida. And so now those communities celebrate Save the Frogs Day on an annual basis. And we've had a few other individuals do this for us, helped us out. Tim Kaine, when he was the governor of Virginia, was actually the first governor to recognize Save the Frogs Day in the state of Virginia. So great. Many of these dedicated individuals got Save the Frogs Day recognized in their state or in their city. It sometimes takes a lot of work. And so if you have any questions about that, feel free to email us at contact@SaveTheFrogs and be happy to further help you out with getting it recognized. And Save the Frogs Day is also a great day to celebrate amphibians by bringing awareness through media. So many newspapers and TV stations have picked up on Save the Frogs Day. For example, on Save the Frogs Day, there was an article on the front page of Le Monde in Paris. So this is Paris's largest, or France's largest newspaper, and they were talking all about eating frogs. In France, they eat many, many frogs. So this was kind of an interesting article that brought a lot of awareness to Save the Frogs, but also Save the Frogs Day. And we've also been featured on the, on CNN. So there are many, news organizations that pick up on Save the Frogs Day. And so, but it takes a little bit of a push. We have to get dedicated individuals to spread the word to these news agencies and such, and newspapers. So, but really it comes down to that it's up to us, right? And so I like this quote from Margaret Mead, because there's such a big problem with the amphibian extinction crisis, right? And there's so many threats that it's impossible for one agency or an organization to solve them all. And so Margaret Mead said it best, that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's true. And we're seeing that right now, because there's a big popular movement of people dedicated to protecting the environment and saving the frogs as well. And so Save the Frogs Day is just an excellent way to get people interested in amphibian conservation and to bring more awareness and action so that we can help save those frogs. And so it's so important to go out there and engage your community on Save the Frogs Day. But it doesn't have to be a huge event with hundreds of people. It could just be with you and your friends. Just as many people as possible is best. But it's more about starting, getting that little bit of action started, and then holding a day to celebrate the frogs and raise awareness for their conservation. So mark your calendars, because Save the Frogs Day is April 29th, 2017. And we hope that all of you out there will do your best to hold an event and get organized, so it's so much more powerful than maybe years past, and we can have the best Save the Frogs Day event yet. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at Starkey, STARKEY, at SaveTheFrogs.com. And I will be coordinating hundreds of events around the world this year, and I look forward to helping you with your event. So have a great Save the Frogs Day.